Welcome to Construction Genius. You're going to like this conversation. My guest, Blima Ehrentreu. And Blima is the founder and CEO of the Designers Group. She's a creative visionary and industry trailblazer, and her passion and leadership showcasing the transformative power of purpose-driven design has had a tremendous impact upon the clients that she works with. We talk about why design is important, the difference between good design and bad design. We talk about the unconscious and yet highly effective way that she was able to build a diverse team to help her to execute the challenging job of producing designs that are livable, that are practical, and that are aesthetically pleasing. I really like design. I'm pretty ignorant about it. I ask a lot of questions about what good design is and bad design and all that kind of stuff. But, it's just a feel when you're in a good space. It's something that it's refreshing and it's enjoyable. And it's important that the buildings that we build have the form, the function, the practicality, and the aesthetic for the folks that are using them. And so I think you're going to enjoy this conversation very much. Blima knows what's up. Enjoy the various takeaways. Make sure that you share this with other people who would benefit from listening. Let's dive into the conversation. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Blima, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
My name is Blima Ehrentreu, and I am the founder and CEO of the Designers Group. We're an interior design firm dedicated to designing with purpose to create a better world. And we're all about the impact that our designs can have. And we love when people using the spaces that we've worked on are really able to maximize their potential in them.
That's great. How did you get into design?
So I actually always was a creative person. I always loved art. And when it was time for me to figure out what I wanted to do as a career, interior design just seemed like the natural course of action. And I went to school, got a master's in interior architecture and design. And then I worked at an architectural firm to get that technical experience, understand the technical side of design. And that was the start of this incredible journey that I'm still on.
That's awesome. When did you know you wanted to have your own business?
That was never necessarily the plan, but it kind of just transitioned into that. I was working at the architectural firm, and another designer reached out to me and asked me if I'd want to partner with her in starting our own firm. And that just sounded like something that would be really exciting and really impactful. And as a woman in the industry, I realized that we'd be able to open up so many doors for other women by doing this. And that's how it started. And what began as a 2-woman firm really transitioned into something incredible. We have a team of over 30 right now. We're working on amazing projects throughout the US and Canada. And every day is just exciting, something new, a new way for us to make a difference. And I love every second of it.
That's awesome. When you started your company and were just getting into it, what was the biggest mistake you made when you were building your business?
So that's an interesting question because I don't know if there was one biggest mistake, but it's always about learning throughout every single project that we work on. I'm still learning, and I've been doing this for over 10 years. But I do remember the first mistake that I made, which was we were working on a residential project. It was one of our first clients when we started the firm. And we selected this beautiful sofa. We checked the dimensions, everything worked. And it came time for the delivery guys to bring the sofa to the home, and they could not get it through the front door. And that was something that we didn't even think of. We looked at the dimensions, we looked at the space, we looked at the material, we looked at how it worked with everything else, and everything was perfect. And then the fact that it couldn't get through the front door was such a lesson. And I always tell my team, mistakes are there for us to learn. So the only problem with making mistakes is if you don't learn from them. So now, anytime we're working on a project, we always make sure that whatever we're specifying will work within the space. Like right now, we're working on a very large event space in Brooklyn. And we designed these partitions that go from floor to ceiling. And basically so that because it's really large, the event space can be divided and be used simultaneously by different events happening at the same time. And one of the things that I pointed out to the lead designer was, how are we getting these partitions into the space? Because it's an 18-foot high ceiling and the elevators are not that size. So we had to make sure that the partitions are delivered to the space before construction continued on the other floors. But like I said, it's always about learning and taking every lesson wherever it is and making sure to implement those whatever it is that we learn from it into our future designs. And again, also taking responsibility for it. Like I didn't mention that, but even with the sofa, we paid for the client to return the sofa. There was a restocking fee, and we chose something else that would get through the front door. It's all about learning from the mistakes, but also taking responsibility, because at the end of the day, people are hiring us for our expertise, and we need to stand behind our product.
That's cool. That's awesome. Tell me, why is design important?
Design is so important because it really impacts the environments that we're in. And as a design firm, we're working on so many different projects in so many different industries. And I always say that so many people don't even realize the impact of the spaces that they're in. But when they're in that space, they're able to do certain things if the design lends itself to that. We're working on anything from senior living to multifamily to office. And there's always those core principles that are there. And that, like in an office, you want people to be productive. You want them to be happy. When people are happy, they're able to produce in the best way possible. When someone's in a senior living facility and they're happy, that means they'll be able to rehabilitate properly. They'll be able to live a better life. They'll be able to be there for longer. In every space that we work on, there's a different mission, there's a different vision, but it all boils down to the same principles that we want people to live their best life in that space. And we're looking across industries to make sure that we're integrating that into the design.
When you're working with a contractor and you're discussing with them their vision for the project, and to put it bluntly, they have a champagne vision and a beer budget, how do you work with them, particularly when it comes to some of those very fundamental things that you just shared about? In a office space, you want people to be productive. In a senior living space, you want them to be happy. How do you negotiate that through with a contractor and discuss it?
So I always say that part of being a designer is understanding what people are saying, even without them saying it. It's almost like a therapist. You want to be able to understand what their vision is, even when they can't verbalize it. And sometimes they do verbalize it, and what they're saying is completely not what they want. As designers, it's our job to be able to show the client or show the end user what it is that we envision and why that will best maximize the space and the potential for the space. That's really what it's about, understanding the mission or the vision of the space and being able to utilize our expertise to translate it into a space that will really work and work well.
Okay, so you said something very interesting there, which I know people come across a lot of times, is that they have an idea of what they want. They may have a sense of it, but they're not able to verbalize it. And part of your job is to help them to articulate and clarify that. What are some of the key questions that you like to ask someone when you're in a consultation to help them to begin that articulation process?
We always have first meeting when we sign on to a project, and it's a conversation. We always start with asking them to tell us, what is this space that you want to design? Who are you trying to attract in the space? And most importantly, what do you want those people who will be in the space to be doing? And that, I think, is really what's most important. It's the function of the space and how our designs will encourage the people that are using it to be able to maximize that. Now, like an interesting example, a little bit different what you're probably thinking when I'm talking about it, is Over COVID, we got into the urgent care space where we had a client who was starting an urgent care brand. And we sat with him. We were brainstorming what are the differentiators for this urgent care brand? They were a new company. How do they want to set themselves apart? And we took our expertise from the hospitality space and we said, why, when you're getting a massage or a facial, is that a luxurious experience? And when you're getting stitches or you have to go visit the doctor, that's experience that is anxiety ridden and that people really do not look forward to. What we did was we said, why not bring in those concepts of a hospitality space, a spa, into the urgent care experience? And it was really interesting because at the first grand opening, I was there for the ribbon cutting and I heard one of the city officials say to the other, because they had people from the city come, he said, hey, this feels like a spa. And I walked over to him and I said, did someone pay you to say that? Like literally, that was our vision for the space. We looked at what are the users? What is someone who's coming to an urgent care? What will they be feeling like? What do we want them to actually feel like? And it was an incredible experience. And we keep seeing how impactful our designs have been by the way people are reacting to being in that space.
Interesting. I'm hearing there the marriage between form and function. If I understand what the function of the building is, keeping in mind that human beings are going to be using it, then I can begin to think more through the form of the building. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, that's a good way of looking at it, for sure.
In terms of that, what are the other parameters as you're coming to look at a space, as you're beginning to work with a client? What are some other insights that you bring to the table that help you to put together a design that matches up with that inarticulate vision sometimes that the client has?
We always look at the people who will be using the space, the demographic, like who are we trying to bring in? How will they be comfortable in this space? We also look at budgetary constraints. What's the budget for the project? We want to make sure that by the time they get up to the finishes, which is usually the last part of a construction execution, that there's still money there for them to actualize our vision. And another thing, we also want to make sure that the space will last. We want to use materials that are durable and will withstand whoever will be using the space. For example, when you're working in a medical facility, there's a lot of times heavy usage. We want to make sure that any medical equipment or any walkers, wheelchairs, or exam equipment will be able to work well in this space, but also not destroy what we've designed. These are some of the things that we look at, but there's also so much more. We look at sustainability. We look at the experience that people will be having. I mean, another example, back to the urgent care, just to talk about that, we found this material that looked like a velvet, did not absorb, but made you feel like you're in a high-end environment. And what happened was when people were coming to the first location, they were a little uncomfortable. Why is there velvet? Even though it did not absorb, it was actually way more expensive than velvet. But they felt like it would attract germs. It's also about understanding the psyche of the people who will be using that space. Like I said, we're always learning. That was an interesting experience for us because here we found this material that was so perfect because it didn't absorb, but it gave you that luxurious feel. But that's not what people wanted in that space. We're always looking at so many different things when it comes to designing a space. And that's why I always say, the initial investment of hiring a designer always pays out at the end because you have someone who's really looking into so many different aspects of what the end user will want or look for that you'll have that user in the space. So it's worth it to hire someone who has that experience and the knowledge to be able to execute properly. Construction's expensive. So anytime you're putting in that money, you want to do it in the right way, and you want to do it with the right guidance that your project will pay off or you'll actually be able to pay for it.
As you were speaking there's a couple of questions I have. You talked about a space lasting, and it's so interesting because in many of the products that we use, the design of the product is such that it has perhaps a resonance for a short period of time and then looks dated or is not comfortable to be in. What's comfortable one year is uncomfortable the next year, perhaps, just because of the trends that are around us. How do you design a space that's timeless?
So that's a pretty broad question because it really depends which industry. It depends how in one year it's already dated. But like I could give an example from a multi-family.
Can I give you an example of what I'm talking about?
Sure.
Let's just take an office space, for instance. And you were talking about an office space where people are productive and people are having fun, right? Back in the day, you'd have cubicles, and then you'd have like maybe these executive offices around the outside. And then there was this trend where the executives are like, well, no, we're not going to be in the offices. We're just going to be in the middle with everybody else. And then the executives are like, well, that's not working because I can't concentrate. There's too much stuff going on. That kind of thing. How do you design a space that is productive on the one hand and yet timeless on the other in terms of the aesthetic of it and the way that it functions?
Okay, so that's a good question. What I would say when it comes to an office environment, every company is so different and every company has a different way of collaborating and working together. So some offices, they need those separate work areas where people can really be productive on their own. Maybe they're on calls, maybe they're having private meetings. In that way, we would design the spaces separately. In other office environments, working together is key and collaborating is what gives them the best possible work outcome. In that way, I believe that's part of our initial research where we're talking to them. We're understanding what it is they're doing, what service they're providing, what product they're providing, who they are as a brand, what they're trying to get their employees or clients to get to with whatever it is that they're offering. But when you say like keeping spaces timeless, I think about certain public areas. When I talk about a multifamily building where you're bringing in prospective tenants or renters or condo owners, you want to keep the space as neutral as possible so it appeals to as many people as possible. So you don't want to go crazy with bright colors or do anything that will only appeal to one type of person. But back to the office example, if you're working with a certain brand, you want their brand colors, their brand mission, you want that to be very visible so that anyone who walks into the space from their team takes pride in what and who they are. And any potential customer walks in and knows exactly who they are as a brand.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Not only incorporating this idea of general design elements, but also the brand itself. And so there's lots going on here. You're thinking about the brand, you're thinking about the people who are occupying the space, you're thinking about the purpose of the space. All of that then flows into, and I'm sure many other things, flows into what it means to put together a good design.
Yes, 100%. I always say design is about the experience that people will have in the space. And that's why we've actually included branding as one of our services, because we believe that it's not just when you walk into the space, it's also before you're in the space. What are their social media handle? What is their social media experience like? Who are they in a print ad? Like when you're seeing possibly a commercial and then you walk into their actual physical space, everything works together and it all lends itself to each other.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we love it. We're a creative team. And we love the challenge. And we really want our clients to be successful with whatever it is, whoever they are, and whatever it is that they're offering. So we want to make sure that everything works well together and gives the client that full, all-encompassing experience.
The audience that's listening to us today here are commercial construction companies. Obviously, on every construction project, there's multiple vendors and project partners involved, and it's tremendously complex. And the relationship with the designer is one of those essential elements. What advice do you have to contractors to get the most out of their design partners?
We always tell any of the vendors that we're working with on a project that we're a team. We're all here to give the client the best possible outcome. And we're all working together to accomplish that. And sometimes when working on a construction project, it's natural for people to blame each other. For someone to say, well, the architect didn't tell us that, or the electrician didn't bring up that point, or the mechanical engineer forgot that. We're all about working together and figuring out solutions together. So there's never a blame game. It's never about whose fault it is. It's always, how can we make this work? And how can we make our client happy? And we look for teams to work with that believe in this as well. And we have found some incredible companies that we work with that we all work together with this vision in mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of my favorite designers, his name is Massimo, and he has this quote I always keep in mind. And he says this: never work for a bad client, because what happens, one bad client leads to another bad client. Only work for good clients, even when you're desperate, because one good client will lead to another good client. In your experience, what makes a bad client?
So many things. But we don't have any bad clients. So it's hard for me to answer that. But I have turned down projects when I saw from our initial meetings that the client wasn't necessarily about giving the end user the best experience. When we're designing, we want to have an impact. We want to make a positive difference. And sometimes in those initial conversations, you're able to see that we're not seeing eye to eye in that. But in general, we've really grown organically. And it's really been one of our clients telling another client, or a contractor that we've worked with who tells another contractor. And most of them really have the same mission as us, which is about making the world better one space at a time. There have been not even a handful of times that I have turned down projects for that reason.
Hey, this is Eric. And guess what? Yes, it's that point in the show where we do the commercial break for my book, Construction Genius. It's a great book. It's got lots of 5-star reviews on Amazon. It's effective. It's hands-on. It's practical. It's no BS. It's simple. It's leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice. This is what you do. There's 12 chapters. You read one chapter a month. You read it with your leaders. You ask each leader to come away with one application. You hold them accountable for that application. And over 12 months, you will see their leadership and your leadership completely transform. All from one little book. And the best news is it's an easy book to read. We're not doing War and Peace. We're not doing Anna Karenina. We're not doing something complicated. We use words that you can understand because that's how we communicate. Go to Amazon, purchase the book, enjoy it, and let me know what you think about it too. Love your feedback. Thanks very much, and let's get back to the conversation with Blima. When a contractor is looking to engage a designer and maybe has one or two to pick between, what are some key questions that contractor should be asking as they're selecting a designer to make sure that they get the right one for the particular project that they're working on?
I think the key is making sure that they're working with a designer that they can actually execute that designer's vision. And it's so important because at the end of the day, as designers, we're only as good as the partners that we work with that can execute our vision. And that's what we look for when working with contractors. We want people who want our vision to become reality. I think, and I believe that it works on the flip side too. Contractors want to work with design firms that want their visions to be executed and that they believe that they're the right person to do that.
It's interesting. What do you think the difference is between good design and bad design?
So like I said before, design is all about the experience that you have in the space. And we believe that engaging all 5 senses really lends itself to that. It's not just about the space looking pretty. It's also about the way it functions. And it's also really engaging all 5 senses. We make sure that we utilize different, for example, making sure that there's a good smell in the space, making sure that the acoustics work so people can hear each other, making sure that people are comfortable in the space. There's so much that goes into it, but it's not just about how the space looks. And I think that sometimes people get confused with that. They look at a space, they're like, oh, wow, this looks great, but it really doesn't function optimally. And that's something that we're really passionate about, making sure that the spaces that we're designing function optimally and the people who are inside, who are using it, can appreciate that and also are able to maximize the potential.
What you're describing here ideally it makes sense, and it's actually pretty cool. I hadn't thought about designers thinking about the acoustics and the smell and all that kind of stuff. So that's totally cool. What you're describing is very difficult to do. It's not easy to do, I would imagine.
Listen, people are hiring us because of what we know and because of how we can make spaces incredible, which shouldn't be easy. And that's why we go to school, and that's why we work on projects to get that experience. We hire designers that have that experience. And if, let's say, there's something new that we're working on, we'll do the research, we'll make sure to learn everything that we need to. We're here to give that expertise. And if it wasn't difficult, then people can do it on their own.
As your business is expanding and growing and you're looking for designers, a couple of questions. Where do you source your talent? And when you're interviewing someone, how do you find the diamonds in the rough?
That's a great question, because design is creative. So it's not like you can look at a resume and say, okay, this person is the right fit. So what we typically do is, before we hire someone, we have paid trial where we give them a couple of tasks to work on, and we're able to see what the results are, how they think, how they're approaching the challenge, what aspects of design they're bringing into the space. And sometimes we're not always looking for diamonds. We're okay with diamonds in the rough, being able to train and get our design team to the level that they need to be. But we always look for that passion. We always look for that desire to make the spaces amazing. And we have a super diverse team at the Designers Group. And people always ask me, like, how is your team so diverse? Like, do you have an HR team that makes sure that you're hiring like a diverse crew of designers? And I always say, we look at talent. We're looking at each person and what they're able to do from a design perspective. That lends itself to being an incredibly diverse team. And I believe that everyone's different background, their culture, their religion, all their different experiences all give to our designs and make them exponentially better. Because when you have so many different experiences and so many different people with different backgrounds, they can all use their past experience to give our designs the best possible outcome.
Now, this is very interesting here, because you made a very important point that I think is almost liberating for anyone running a business. And that is that you hire based on talent. Talent is talent. It's like when you come to sports, right? Ballers ball. And if you're a baller, we want you on our team. And that really delivers us from superficial diversity and leads us to diversity that is able to produce excellence. And it sounds like what you're driving for is that type of excellence.
100%. That was great. What you just said, you hit the nail on the head.
It's interesting because you have to have talented people in what you do. You can't have pencil pushers or paycheck picker-uppers or anything like that, because what you're trying to do is really difficult. And I think it's really interesting because in construction, ultimately, what people are trying to do is very difficult as well. And if you have that philosophy and that outlook that I'm just looking for talented people and I don't care who they are and where they come from, that's going to have such a tremendous benefit. And I'll say this as well. It makes the diversity natural as opposed to forced. And it makes it business focused as opposed to some sort of other agenda.
I cannot agree more.
Really, really interesting.
I get a lot. I'm a woman in the industry and our team is super diverse. So people really do ask me. And I say, when it's so forced, is almost defeating the purpose, right? Like, we're looking for the best people out there. We're not looking at anything else. And we really do have an incredible team. And I always say, it's only because of our team that our work is at the level that it's at. They're passionate, they're driven, they care about the work that we're doing. And I think our work speaks for itself.
With that in mind, it's interesting because you think about your opportunity to have a broader impact on the folks that you influence. It would be interesting for you to think about how you can bring that particular perspective that you have to a broader audience, because I think it would make a tremendous contribution to the whole discussion around diversity, which for many people is an awkward or uncomfortable conversation to have. But when you frame it in the way that you frame it, it makes it way less awkward and way less uncomfortable.
I'm here to bring it to whatever audience I can. I think that anyone who's worked with us or seen our work definitely sees the value. And that's what we're trying to do, is really bring value.
It's very interesting too, because I'm on your website right now and I'm looking at the people who you have here who work for you. And I don't see anyone over 40, right?
We do have one person. Yeah, we are a younger team. That is a good.
I think that's really cool, right? Because again, when it comes to what you're doing, if you have talent, it doesn't matter how old you are. Whether you're young or old, talent is talent.
But again, so then we could have older people. It's just who we have right now.
No, and that's fine.
Someone older being part of our team.
No, totally. It was just an observation because, again, there's so many places to find talent. And again, I think this is interesting too, is that every company has the ability to attract people and the ability to repel people as well. And like good marketing attracts and repels. Some people will say, I never want to buy that thing. And other people will be like, yeah, I want to buy that. You know what I mean? And I think it's interesting how each company has that impact as well on the people that work for them. But what's super cool is just keeping that focus on talent and knowing that what we have to do is very difficult. We are very much focused on making sure that we get the right people in the right positions who are able to do that difficult thing.
Yeah, but we don't even look at it as difficult. That's an interesting point, because I always say that it's a challenge, but we love challenges because that always gets us to the next level. Anytime there's been a challenge, we had to think differently. We had to be innovative, and that makes our work that much better. And I say that even in my personal life, anytime I went through something or anytime there was a difficulty or challenge, that's when I was able to grow as a person. We've almost taken the word difficulty out of our vocabulary because difficulty kind of has that negative connotation, but we look at it as a challenge, a way to learn, a way to grow, a way to be better. That's kind of how we look at things.
And that's awesome, right? Because we know this intuitively. We may not always apply it, but the only way for us to grow as people is through challenge. You don't grow through comfort. You grow through being challenged.
I know. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. It's a fundamental aspect of life that you will not grow in a place of comfort. You must be in a place of discomfort if you're going to grow.
Yeah, I find that so interesting because we look at growth, it's such a positive thing, but it has to come from something that's not always so easy to experience. But as long as there's a good outcome, then I guess it is a good thing. It very much lends itself to design because there's so many challenges when it comes to construction. You have this idea, but there could be this pipe in the middle or this zoning issue that you can't get past, or ceiling heights that because of certain load restrictions or whatever. The list, I could go on here, but that pushes us to think creatively and to come up with a solution that we would have never thought of before. It's just so interesting how it works.
That's great. When it comes to design, who would you say are some of your biggest influences?
There's so many different influences. And what I like to do is really take every space that I walk into and learn from it. And I'm not crazy. Like, I don't walk into a space and like stand and just like look around, but it's just the way I feel when I walk in. And that's why I love it, because every day and every experience that I have, I'm always learning from. Like, I could walk into a restaurant and say, hey, I love that about this space. And then I could walk into doctor's office, or when I travel. I mean, traveling for me there's so much inspiration there. Learning from the different cultures and seeing how people live in different climates and in different demographic areas and in different, like, depending on weather and depending on their social norms or their religion or their background. I find that to be so inspiring. So I don't have one specific designer that I would say that has super influenced my work. It's more of like everyone. I really try to learn from everyone always. And even in my team, like, I always tell them, like, I learn from every single one of you every single day, because each of them brings something so unique to the table. And we just have to keep our eyes open to it and learn from everyone. And there's just so much to get inspired by.
How do you take what is intuitive and make it tactile or practical or visible?
When it comes to design?
Yeah.
What we typically do are 3D renderings, material boards, or now we're really moving fast in the VR world. We've done so many virtual tours and we have headsets that people can actually experience the spaces that we're designing. And that's been amazing. There's so many ways to use that, where people use it from a marketing perspective, where they want people to actually experience the space before it's built, and from a collaboration side, where everyone that's part of the project can weigh into it and give their opinion. I mean, we were working on a school last year where we were invited to the dinner that they were making for the parents. And we did one of these tours where the parents could actually experience the space before it was built. And it was a private school, so they were looking for donations from parents to make it a reality. And after they were able to experience the space, they got so many more donations because people were actually able to visualize what the board had in mind and what ownership wanted to do. And they were so excited about it. And as soon as there was something tangible for people to understand and to visualize, that gets them on board so quickly. We've really been exploring our TDG Tech Hub, where we're working on all of these type of technological advancements that we believe are so important and are really the future of design. That brings me to AI, where I spoke at an AI conference in Vegas last year. I'm going back this year. I spoke at one in the Javits Center as well in New York. And just how, as a design firm, are we incorporating AI into our design processes? And there's so much that AI can help with. Again, it's never going to replace what a human can do, but it can help us. And we're really leveraging that to make our designs be as innovative as possible and as forward-thinking as possible, and to give our clients the best results at the end.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit more about how people can get in touch with you, the types of people that you like to work with.
We like working with everyone. If you have a great project that you believe that we can make a difference with, then we're here. And we're on every social media platform. We're the Designers Group. So our website is thedesignersgroup.com. And on Facebook, we're the Designers Group. Instagram, the Designers Group. Twitter, TikTok. We're everywhere. You can just Google the Designers Group and we should show up.
Beautiful. Well, Blima, I really, really appreciate your time. I enjoyed this conversation very much. I do wish you the best.
Yes, Eric, this was great. I really appreciate your time and I look forward to staying in touch.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
That was a great conversation. Thank you for listening today. I really enjoyed that, particularly the part about diversity and how Blima has achieved that in her company almost unconsciously. Think about how you're doing that in your business. And one last thing before you leave. Many companies that are in construction have technically skilled people who move into leadership roles and struggle when they become leaders. They don't know how to communicate, hold people accountable. They tend to micromanage. Perhaps their communication style is a bit rough and ready, and they struggle to build teams. If that sounds like anyone in your organization, they might benefit from an executive coach. And that's what I do with my clients. Now, quick heads up, I'm not cheap and I don't work with everyone because there's just not a fit. And so I don't want to waste your time and money working with an executive coach who's not a fit for the organization or the person who you want coaching. But if you have someone and you've listened to the podcast and you're thinking maybe Eric could help them, go to my website, constructiongenius.com/contact. Put in your details there. I'll get pinged and I'll respond to you within 24 hours. And we can set up a short call to figure out if or how I can help you. If there is a possibility of me working with you, we can then set up a longer call to dive into more details as far as that's concerned. And I could perhaps help you to develop the people in your organization through some one-on-one executive coaching. Why get an executive coach? The main reason is this: your people, they don't need someone to tell them what to do. They need a sounding board to help them get clarity on what they need to accomplish to be successful. They need someone to hold them accountable for the initiatives that they need to execute on. And they need someone outside of the organization to just to kind of vent sometimes and say, hey, listen, this is an issue I have with someone that I report to or someone who reports to me. I need to work through this issue, and it's not something that I want to tell other people about, at least not right away. That's why you get an executive coach. Reach out to me. I love working with contractors. I've done it for many, many years. It is my expertise, and if I can help you, I'd love to. Thanks for listening to the show today, and we'll catch you on the next episode.